Well, Dare to Win, the blueprint to building and leading high performance and championship teams, a terrific new book out. McGill University's kinesiology and physical education chair and leading sports psychology researcher, Dr. Gordon Bloom. He's teamed up with McGill alum and five-time national championship coach Chantal Vallée for this amazing book. And they're both with me right now. Great to have you both. And Dr. Bloom, I think I'll start off with something that you talked about right away at the beginning of the book, that it's about more than just coaching. It's also about leadership.
Yeah, I think this book really carries over to all facets of life. It tells you how to treat people, how to have a vision for your program or your company or your business, and then some of the trials and tribulations of trying to reach your goals and having your passion and I just think it carries over to more than sports. And I hope that came through when you were reading it, Mike.
Yes, absolutely. And as I said, it really is a fascinating read. Um, Chantal, I guess you can tell me, you know Dr. Bloom very well. You go way back. When did you decide that you were going to do a book?
Well, I work with Dr. Bloom throughout my graduate studies at McGill already pretty much over 20 years ago. And at that time, we always have collaborated and worked together very well and continue to do that. Past my grad studies, I continued to be in touch with Dr. Bloom, and I came here to the University of Windsor. And after about 10 years of coaching the team, we decided to research again and collaborate on a second scientific article, a peer-reviewed article. And we did that. And at that point when we did this is when I thought, well, we have the theory of, we know what makes coaches and other leaders successful that we researched together. And now I applied it into my job and saw the results and became successful. I think it would be really good to put the whole story in a book and continue to collaborate with Dr. Bloom from the onset. It was never a doubt for me that I want to write this with him, and that the collaboration is what had made both of us very successful in each of our careers.
So, Dr. Bloom, how long did this book take from conception till completion?
Ha, I guess it took us a while because we have different schedules, right? Like I get off in certain times and Chantel's got high season. So like she said, we'd been talking for probably about 10 years before we actually started the writing. And then it took us a few years to get it done. And it was interesting because there's a journal called the International Sport Coaching Journal. And the editor in chief is a good friend of mine and knows about Chantel's story. And he said, why don't you write an article for our journal talking about how Chantal took the research and applied it to coaching practice and about the success that she achieved, because very few coaches have the time or the resources or even the knowledge or the time to read the research. And she had actually read the research and transferred it over to coaching. And he said, tell us how she did it. How did she take the research and apply it to coaching? There's not a lot of those examples. And that's really what spurred us. Once we finished that article, we started talking about writing the book. So I think that's our journey.
Yes. Chantal, when I read the book and I read your story, we see movies all the time. A lot of them make it onto Netflix and the big screen about, somebody starting out, beating the odds and achieving success. And honestly, what you achieved, you went in there and you really created a championship team from almost scratch. It really comes across like a scripted movie. Like it's hard to believe it's true, but it is all true.
Yes, it is definitely all true. Through a lot of sweat, tears, and blood. And it's interesting because a lot of people say this to me, and a lot of people that have read the book say, "Oh my God, this is like a Hollywood story."
Yes.
And but as a funny anecdote, there's a series that's going to come out at some point. I think this fall. They came and they recorded a whole season of our team this past season to follow a little bit what we do. And so the timing is great, and it wasn't planned, but it turns out to be a good timing. And so it will only be this season, this past season, but it will be interesting because there's different takes and outtakes about my leadership and how I interact with players and practices and games. So, but that's only for a short time. But I do agree with you. I get very inspired by stories that I have read or seen or movies where somebody takes, the underdog story is always such a thrill. And I was fortunate enough that I experienced it myself in my career through transforming the program. So I'm really glad it comes across in the book, and it is motivating as well and inspiring as well to read for others.
You've been there how long now at the University of Windsor as the head women's basketball coach?
Well, July 1st, it'll be 20 seasons,
That
20
is
years.
unbelievable. And I mean, when you
Yeah.
first went there, you were a Quebecer. Had you ever lived in Ontario before that?
I hadn't, and my English wasn't great. And I think Dr. Bloom and we have some laughs at, I basically learned to operate and, communicate in English through my master's degree. So he had it the worst,
Yeah.
Writing the first papers and documents I'd have to do. It was a real challenge. So moving on to coming to work in an English environment, operating and everything in English, it was really tough for me. And but it's allowed me to learn the language. I wouldn't say to master it for sure. Like, you ask how much time it took to write this book. I want to add that is how many iterations of the books we had to do, because sometimes I'd send stuff to Dr. Bloom, he'd be like, I don't understand what you're talking about in the book. And I'd be like, oh, so I'd go back and writing in English and then having really like just iteration after iteration of what we want to do until the story flowed well and was written well in a language that it is, that keeps people grabbed into the book.
Right. So, Dr. Bloom, you talk about in the book that this is a must read for any entrepreneur, business owner, coach, or leader, somebody who wants to transform their startup or struggling organization. So, what are you hearing from readers? This is not necessarily just a sports book.
Yeah, what I hear from the readers is, did this really happen? Like, was this possible? And I said, yes, there's nothing exaggerated. It's true. She went and took over the program that was arguably the worst in the country, didn't have anything in place as far as alumni, fundraising, resources, practice schedules. And she sat down and she created a vision for the program, which she called, I believe, the blueprint for success. And she outlined year by year what would happen and what it takes to turn around this program. And it worked. And it just shows that if you have some, a vision and a plan, and you have passion and motivation, that you can achieve anything. So this isn't just about sports, right? And Chantal, when she was a student, read everything about effective leaders. That was really what she dove into, and you can see it in her work and in her thinking, and I believe in her coaching. So I believe this is very transferable, and it shows you that anything is possible if you have the right mindset and dedication.
I just thought of something. You said it was a blueprint. I think you should change that to a bloom print. That could be a bloom print. Maybe we've come up with something interesting here. So Chantal, you took on this job at the University of Windsor. What's it like? I mean, obviously you love it. It's obviously home for you right now.
Yeah, it's very strange. The first few years I was here, people would say, "Where are you from?" And it'd be, "I'm from Montreal," or "I grew up in Joliette," and then that was my discourse. And I was, just at a conference last weekend, and "Where are you from?" "I'm from Windsor." It's really changed.
Right.
I'm definitely, consider myself to have. I spent 20 years of my life in this city,
Yeah.
and I've been very fortunate because of the success that it's brought in a lot of positive. So I'm very attached to Windsor in that sense, and really really proud to be from here now. But it was definitely a shift when I started to realize I would change and say I'm from Windsor. I was like, the change is happening, and yeah.
Are you worried that your book is giving away too many secrets because all the other coaches are going to go buy it and follow all your advice, and then you're almost helping the competition because there's so many tips there? I mean, I couldn't coach, but if I did, I would take your book and I would use that as my blueprint.
No, I'm not worried about that. I think it's interesting throughout everybody's career, and especially as a high performance coach, as a professional coach. I think we go through different stages, and so for me, I was the rookie coach, I was the novice coach, I was wanting to get something happen, and then I became the successful coach. And I think in a career, and especially after 20 years, there's a desire in me to continue to be successful, absolutely, and I'm a lot better at taking the blueprint and establishing it in other sectors or in other teams, or if my team again when the cycles go bad. But it's also a desire for me to put things as a legacy piece on paper. And I had the chance to learn from other coaches. I became who I am because I took time to research other coaches. I sat with them, I interviewed them, I read their books, I got to know them, I got mentored by them. And that's just something that I received. And I have the same desire. And I could tell you that earlier in my career, I was a lot more, I'm not telling anybody, these are what I researched and I keep it for me. But yes, I do hope it helps other coaches. It is a very difficult profession, and or any leadership person. I do hope it helps them. And so this idea, this desire to help others has grown in me, and this desire to leave a legacy and to say, well, this is what I did, and if it can help you the way it helped me, by all means, hopefully, you can be successful with this as well. And I used to think that the top was only for one person, and I know in coaching it's tough because it's really only one person that wins, but I'd like to see more coaches being successful. We work so hard, and so I think it's well deserved. If my book can help them, I would actually probably feel pretty fulfilled. And if they beat me one day and they say, I read your book, I might have to have this interview again. But there's definitely a desire for me to help others.
Dr. Bloom, the format of the book is very clever, I thought. It basically, you go through the game. It includes, you basically have 4-quarter timeouts, even overtime. So it's written in a very clever fashion. Now, did the two of you come up with that concept together?
Yeah, I think it was more Chantal. She says I wanted it to emulate, basketball some way, even though it's not a book about basketball coaching, but I want to sort of have that in there. And so it made sense. So we did a few iterations, and even coming up with the cover of the book, we had some discussions, and Chantal said, I'd like to keep the same theme. And we worked with the publishing company to come up with what I think is a pretty creative cover. So yeah, we tried to have the basketball and have timeouts and keep it sort of sporty, even though it's more than just a sports book.
Yes, Chantal, one of the parts that I didn't know anything about before, found it so interesting, was we do have a team in the Canadian Elite Basketball League, now the Montreal Alliance for the last couple of years. And there is a team called the Hamilton Honey Badgers, which is a little bit of a distance from Windsor. It's not that close. And you became the general manager and head coach in 2018 for this professional men's basketball team. And that was you explained the experience. That was really quite an experience to coach men, and one in particular you had a tremendous conflict with, and you had to stand up to him. That was something really special that you experienced.
Yeah, it was a huge privilege, and the team, the Honey Badgers, just actually relocated to Brampton now, and this still exists. The CBL has grown tremendously into a premier professional league, and the only men's professional league in the country, apart from the Raptors up in the NBA, but it's not a Canadian league. So the experience was amazing. Yes, when I got offered the job, I didn't know it was for a men's team, and I didn't even apply on the job. I got headhunted, and the president of the club told me he wanted me to consider taking the GM and head coaching. And it's only after our initial talk, when I went online to research about the product, I realized, oh, these are men. Oh, okay. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And I had coached high school boys before, I hadn't coached men. And it was a beautiful experience. I love coaching the guys. They love playing for me. It was something I would consider somewhat a great fit. And then you have the same situation as when you coach women, but the human being itself looks a bit different. They're usually taller, bigger, more muscular, and more imposing than what I'm used to, talking to women. And this one individual you talk in particular had been playing in the NBA, and so it was very experienced and very good. He was definitely our best players, one of our best player. And yeah, like there's times where you realize that, and it happens in all sports and all coaches, where players aren't happy with decisions or they want to do things their way. So there was a bit of a conflict, and I remember standing, and I remember this man like just being just so disappointed, anxious, and being loud. And I thought, wow, like this is real. But the thing that it did for me was. Guys, they do connect and settle conflicts often with raising their voice with each other in the sport world. So the fact that he did that with me, I thought, okay, I'm one of them. He didn't see, in my opinion, the woman anymore. He saw the coach, and he went at it like he would do with any coach. And even though it was probably an unpleasant experience, at the end I thought, you know what, that's good. That's good. Like he saw me as one of his coach and his coach, and he told me how he was not happy, and we settled it on and we moved on and actually upsetted the team in the playoff game. So it was a good ending to it, but also in a strange way a thought of, yeah, I'm really their coach at this moment. They would do the same thing if it was a guy. And so I took it really well.
But it was a one-time thing for you. You didn't pursue it beyond that first season. You went back to University of Windsor, and that's where you remain.
Yeah, so what happened is that I had taken a sabbatical from the University of Windsor in order to actually start writing the book. So we started
Oh,
the idea.
yeah.
I moved to Montreal. I went there and I was like, Dr. Bloom, I'm going to be, 3 blocks away where we're going to meet and we're going to start writing this book. So that was the September
Yeah.
2018. And the email came in October, and I was hired in late November. So I hadn't planned to do that job, but since I was available and not coaching the university, it ended up working. At the end of the season, I was to return to the University of Windsor. Of course, the sabbatical was only 1 year. However, I did get a contract renewal at both the GM and the head coach, and I contemplated staying coaching the Honey Badgers. I overall absolutely loved the experience of working with the pros. So it was a really big battle with whether I actually now resign from my job at Windsor and go in that direction, or I just go back. And in the end, I decided to go back to coaching the women. It was something that I felt that's what I had engaged myself in doing, taking a sabbatical and going back. So I stayed with the Honey Badgers in a different capacity. I became a part-time coach and stayed with them for 2 more seasons, continued
Oh,
to
okay.
help grow the organization. So it was still a wonderful experience. And I don't, it was a challenge. The university was very kind to me. They let me a couple months to think about it, actually. And for a while, I did both. And then I realized I really had to choose. And I chose to go back to coaching the women in
Right.
part, Mike, because I actually felt that as a woman, I really wanted to continue to give my expertise to other really good female athletes and not just kind of take the step, what was considered maybe the step up and
Right.
go there. And I had my life in Windsor, my house, everything. So it was just a decision I made in the end to
Sure.
do that.
So, Dr. Bloom, this all began because Chantal was your inaugural master's student. So, what a relationship you built with her from that point on.
Yeah, it was an interesting story. So Chantal had gotten accepted at McGill before I had been hired. And I did a study. I was working at a university in California called Fresno State University, and we had a men's basketball coach there, Jerry Tarkanian, who's a Hall of Fame
Oh,
coach.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and we did a behavior observation study of him during practices for an entire year. He gave us access, and we had published the article. And Chantal had read it, and then she heard that I was coming to McGill, and she reached out to me. So we hadn't even met in person. She reached out. She goes, "I've read a lot of your stuff, including the Tarkanian study. I'm sure you don't have any graduate students yet. Would you like to be my supervisor?" So we talked, and I remember one thing that she said to me that really struck me, Mike. And She said, I really want to do a study that makes me a better coach, and I don't care how long it takes. So, a lot of graduate students are on the clock and they want to get in and out and get their degree as fast as possible. And Chantal clearly had read a lot of the work that I had done. And she said she wanted to do a study that would make her a better coach. And I was like, this is perfect. I mean, I love applied research and well, what can we learn? And I had some connections in the Coaching Association of Canada, and they, set her up to meet some of the top coaches around the country. And what was interesting, you go back to talk to Chantal about sharing information, all the coaches in her study that she reached out to, every single one agreed to do the interview. And these were busy people. And there was one that actually was going through cancer treatment at the time. And I remember, Chantal, she said to you, we can do it in the week in between my chemotherapy treatments. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We said, no, your health is more important. But, I think these people served as mentors and role models for Chantal. And she understands it's important to give back like these coaches did to her.
Very interesting. And it's ironic, Dr. Bloom, you and I have been in touch for several months about me getting the book, reading the book, reviewing the book, doing the interview, and it's going to appear in the suburban newspaper. People will be able to see it as of June 6th at the suburban.com in the FYI section. And lo and behold, a few days before this virtual meeting, there you were at the Cummings Center sports dinner, coming over to introduce yourself to me. So it was kind of meant to be that we met a few days earlier, and that's terrific. So let me ask you finally, where can people get this book?
It's available online, but if they want to get any bulk orders and they're in Montreal, they can certainly reach out to me and get a reduced price. I have some copies that I can make available. So probably best to email me at gordon.bloom@mcgill.ca if you're locally. Otherwise, it's available online.
All right. Well, it was great talking to both of you. Thank you for your time and congratulations on a great book.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Great having Dr. Gordon Bloom and Chantal Vallée as my guests.